Welcome to the College of Education.
So let's get into it. So this is going to be our FTCE toolbox for testing and test taking strategies. Now, if you are on your computer now, you want to go ahead and open up another tab. So go ahead and open up the tab that we're going to be working on. We're going to be at the actual professional education test site, the Florida Teacher Certification Exams website. So you want to take a minute and go ahead and open a tab and go to this website, because we're going to be going back and forth through that website, just so that you all have an idea of how to navigate through this page, as it has a lot of information. So let's just start really quickly to orient ourselves with the information that is readily available to us and accessible to us before we get into the nuts and bolts of it. So on this website, you have your general information, contents, authorization, teaching certificate testing, roles of the test. When you click on those links, it's going to pre-populate more information there. For the second section, we have preparation and strategies. Now, a lot of the information that we're going to go through today, a lot of that information is taken directly from this page and this website. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to augment that with actual test taking skills and strategies. Okay, and you see here, if you look at the contents of this particular section, understanding the test structure, plan of course study, suggested study method, and when you click on it, it just brings you down to that piece of text. The third section is the competencies and the skill and blueprint of the actual test. Now, why is this important? Now, I tell my students this all the time when we're talking about the FSA or now the FAST data. You want to know where you're going to get the bulk of your points from, right? So you need to know how the test is composed, where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, so you ensure that you have mastery on those particular competencies. And we're going to talk more about that. Section 4 is going to give you the test format and also some sample questions. Now, if you look here, guys, you get 1 or 2 sample questions, but there are actual practice tests that you can purchase. There are resources online that you can get relatively easy from Amazon to prepare for the test. But this gives you a good idea of what a direct question looks like, sentence completion, and scenario questions. Keeping in mind that those are the types of questions that you will indeed see on the test. You can actually begin, so you can go through this, and there are live links there. And then lastly, our bibliography, where we're getting our content from. Okay, so let's go back here to our presentation. Now, everyone has their second tab up, so that's going to be our resources. When I say we're going to the website, you know you're going to just pull your website up. Even if you hear me, you don't have to see me. So let's get started. I'm clocking my time now. I'm going to give you all, make sure I give you the full 60 minutes. Okay, so this FTCE toolbox for test taking strategies has been developed by us here at Miami-Dade County Public School educators, but again, in mind to support, enhance, and improve test performance. Now, remember that the toolbox was developed by educators here in Miami, including myself, but this is for the test of Florida. So, okay, so even if you're not in Miami, this information is still relevant to you. Once you have a solid command of the subject matter and materials presented by myself during this particular tutorial, you're going to have time to put in play the research that we've done based on test taking strategies. So we're going to use the website to do that in the FTCE toolbox, which has been proven effective for thousands of students. Remember, you must adapt test taking strategies to the specific type of test you are taking. Remember, guys, there's professional standards tests. You may be taking just the English competency or the math competency. So they're gonna be small tweaks based on which certification test you're taking. All right, tool 1, preparation strategies. When you're preparing to take the examination, the best strategy is to study systematically and effectively. Remember that you are not only preparing for a test, but also reviewing the content that will be a part of your responsibilities, right? So you want to make sure that when you're testing, when you're studying for the test, you're not going into it without a plan. So you wanna go into this strategically, right? I'm going to make a plan this week, and then we're going to talk about a study schedule too. So this week I'm hitting these competencies. Next week I'm going to hit these competencies. You're going to be looking for real world applicable experiences, whether it's in your text, making sure that you're able to make those connections, because that's going to come in handy when it's time for those scenario questions. Tool number 2, understanding the test structure and content. And I mentioned that briefly when we were looking at the website, and they actually have a section on the website for you to have mastery on the way the test is broken down. The knowledge, skills, and abilities assessed on the Florida Teaching Certificate exams are described in the competencies and skills. The competencies and skills are based on relevant educational standards for the subject area. For example, the State Board of Education approved educational standards and national standards. These competencies and skills represent the knowledge that teams of teachers, subject area specialties, and district level educators have determined to be important for beginner teachers. Okay, Ms. IT, to make it make sense, make it plain. In layman's terms, the test is put together by folks who know what they're doing, and they're focusing on, and you're going to be assessed on the competencies that you need to have mastery in prior to going into a classroom, okay? Now, let's talk about the test design of the professional education test. So this test is the test that every single educator that is in the classroom over 3 years has passed and have been certified on. Okay, so this is a computer-based test. So there's a few things, right, that's different when you're talking about a pen and paper test and a computer-based test, right? So you got to be looking at the screen. You know, you want to make sure that you're comfortable with your keyboarding, etc. The number of questions. So there's approximately 100 multiple choice questions. You have 2 hours and 30 minutes for this test. Your scale score is 200. Okay, so go in there knowing that I have 100 questions and I have 2 hours and 30 minutes to answer that. So based on that, how much time should I be spending on each question, right? How much time should I be spending on each question? Keeping that in mind with the competencies that have the most bang for our buck, okay? Tool 3, understanding competencies and skills and test blueprints. And we're going to go back to that in a minute. Competencies are the broad ideas of content knowledge. The skills identify specific behaviors that determine each of the competencies, okay? So we want to be very clear to differentiate between competencies and skills. Now, this is what I call your power vocabulary, okay? So these are words that you need to have ownership of as it pertains to being able to identify the difference between a competency and a skill, so that when you go into the test, you are familiar, and that's going to give you an added level of comfort on the questions. And then, of course, percentages, which indicate the approximate portion of test questions that represent the competencies in the test. Now, let's take a minute to go back to our actual web page, okay? So we're talking about the structure of the test, understanding the test structure and competencies. So if you see here on my screen, and I hope you all are seeing this on my screen now. If you see this here on my screen, it just reiterates the power vocab that you see here in our on our presentation, competency, skills, and percentages, okay? When you are looking at the tests, this shows you the competency, okay? So that's your competency, and we know that that's the broad idea. So our overarching idea for competency 1 is knowledge of instructional design and planning. Within competency 1, there are 10 skills, okay? So within competency 1, there are 10 skills. This competency is worth 18% of the test, okay? So take a minute, digest that information. When you're looking at the test, this is showing you where the competency is. Each competency has a varying amount of skills based on that competency, and then you know the percentage of the test that falls under. Okay, I'm going back to my PowerPoint here. Now, competency, skills, and blueprint. So let's look at it. It kind of gives us a breakdown of the competency, skills, and the approximate percentages of questions. So just by looking at this, we can already see which competencies hold the most weight. Competency 1 and competency 3. Okay, so competency 1 and competency 3 hold the most weight at 18% of the test. You know, when you're studying, you're not going to hyper focus on competency 8 and 7, especially if you have some modicum of mastery on those competencies. You want to make sure that you are extra confident when it comes to competency 1, competency 3, competency 2. Okay. If we go back here, to our I'm sorry, okay, here we go. If we go back here to our our guide, it actually gives you steps, right? Actually gives you steps as you go through and you answer questions. Step 1, read the competencies and skills for the examination you're preparing to take. Step 2, read the sample questions, attempt to actually answer them. And step 3, develop a study plan based on your focus areas. Now, why is this important, right? So you're going into this test, you kind of got an idea of where the competencies lies, but we got to get some benchmark data, right? So before you may say, oh, well, Ms. Atita, I'm pretty good with competency too. Okay, well, let's get some benchmark data. We take a practice test. Based on that practice test data, that's going to tell you, hey, Sharon, you got some work to do in competency 5. Hey, Jamal, you may need to really brush up on competency 1. So that's the importance of having that benchmark data. So make sure that you take advantage of any practice test, any resources that are available to you in that regard. All right, so we talked about this, the following excerpt. We know where our competency is. Okay, we know where our competency is, and we know where our skills are, and we know approximately how much is needed of us as it pertains to mastery. That's going to be on the actual test. Okay, tool number 4. We're making amazing time. Plan a course of study, okay? Listen, guys, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. This test, when I was coming through, I think it was $50 to take these tests. I think it's up to like 150, probably more. So you want to make sure that when you go in to take this test, you're getting the most of it, and that if you can knock it out the park the first time, you do that. But that doesn't happen unless you have a plan, your course of study. How are you going to study for the test? How are you going to progress monitor your progress as it pertains to mastery? And how are you going to assess when you're actually ready to sit for the test? So reading the competencies and skills for the examination you are preparing to take. The first step is of preparing is to identify the information the exam will cover by reviewing the competencies and skills for your subject area. This will help you to familiarize yourself with the test structure and content, gain a more specific idea of the knowledge, skills, and abilities you will be required to demonstrate on the exam, and begin assessing your readiness to take the exam. Okay, so now we've already touched on this briefly. I want to go back to our web tool so we can actually see how do we plan our course of study. They actually give us some tips there. So in section 2, we see that we have plan a course study, and it takes you to how you should be planning to study, right? So we're going to identify the most appropriate resources. We've already started to do that. We're going to develop a study plan and a schedule. Okay, that's going to be important. You're going to also consult with any advisors that you may have right there on campus. You can speak with them if you're struggling with a certain competency. Maybe they have added resources they can help provide you with. Now, I like this little quick suggested study method, which is an overview. You want to first preview, question, read through, reflect, recite, and review. And don't be afraid to go old school on this, right? Get those flashcards going. Make sure that you have that repetition in place with some of those terms, especially terms that may be outside of context you wouldn't be necessarily familiar with, so that when you see them on the test, you're good to go. It also gives us some test taking advice. And we're going to talk a little bit about test anxiety if that is something that you struggle with. Tool 5, read questions 2 or 3 times before attempting to answer. So read questions 2 or 3 times before attempting to answer. Just make sure you got a handle on it. The sample questions represent the type of questions you may find on the examination. For tests or subtests that include an essay component, you will be presented with the topic and asked to use the topic as the basis of your essay. So the multiple choice piece of it, the fill in the blank, you have sample questions there with the type of questions, and you have samples that you'll see on the exam. So you'll have an opportunity to practice those. Remember, on the actual test day, you want to read those questions, read it again, make sure you know exactly what they're asking for before you answer the question. Now, with the essays, I'll tell you, keep your writing clean. Keep it clean, keep it concise, and make sure that you are addressing what the prompt is asking for. Tool 6, develop a study plan to focus your studies. Determine the best time to take the exam. For instance, participants from past FTCE tutorials have reported the best time to take the test is 1 to 2 weeks after they've completed the tutorials. You should have already mastered the content that you will see on the exam. At this point, the best preparation is to identify your areas of strength and weakness to study with intentionality. Any content with which you have had difficulty in the past, any other content you have not yet mastered, you should then systematically and effectively study areas you have not yet mastered. And then lastly, identify the most appropriate resources, such as Khan Academy for the FTCE math tutorials. And Khan Academy is a great free resource. If you are like me and maybe need a little extra help in math, please make sure you check that resource out. Okay, so those are some tips on how to develop your study plan. Now, if you're with us now, go ahead and scan that QR code. That QR code is going to actually take us right here to this resource page. On your resource page, you have a bevy of resources, and I'm going to tell you my favorite. Competencies and skills blueprint, we saw that. Test information guides, learn about the content format of the test. These CBT tutorials and the test preparation videos, okay? We're gonna look at one together, but get into it, right? So get into it. This is a resource that you wanna use. Additional resources include test competencies and skills worksheets, as well as score interpretation guides. So if you want to kind of dig into how is the score given, how is this going to be broken down, keep it in mind that you need a scale score of 200. That would not apply to you all. Now, I want to look at, let's go, before we get into the study plan, I want us to really quickly actually go to that resource page. So when you click on the home button, it's going to take you here to the home button, and it gives you a condensed guide for the website. You can click on those hyperlinks, and we talked about most of them already. These hyperlinks are going to take you to what we saw on the side screen. Here is where you have those tutorials, etc. Now, when you click on CBC tutorials, that's going to give you a pull down of different computer-based tutorials that you can practice on. And this is what it will look like. Teaches you how to navigate, tips for optimal viewing. You need to make sure that at some point you've gone in here and you've actually looked at this so you know what to expect on the test. Okay, and you have an opportunity to click in here, see what's happening. Oh, okay, this isn't the practice. This is just this is giving us our overview of what the test looks like and what to expect on those questions. Okay. Test preparation video. So what do they have in store for us here? When you click on that, you have part 1, part 2, and part 3. So there's 3 videos, 3 preparation videos that you can check out. What's on the test? What do I already know? And what do I need to learn? And how can I do my best? Let's check out video 1, what's on the test.
How to prepare for your teacher certification test. Part 1. What's on the test? What teachers know and do is the most important influence on what students learn. Taking and passing the tests required for your educator certificate is an important step on the path to becoming a teacher or administrator. To effectively prepare for the test, you should first answer 4 questions. What's on the test? What do I already know? What do I need to learn? How can I do my best? Let's consider each of these questions. Let's begin by answering this question. What's on the test? First, you need to find out what content or subject matter knowledge is going to be tested. The first step in preparing for the test is to study the test blueprint, which can be found on the FTCE/FELE program website. Reviewing the test blueprint can help you understand the content on which you will be tested. The test blueprint describes the major content areas of the test. Each test blueprint contains descriptions of competencies and skills. Competencies are broad areas of content knowledge. Skills are specific behaviors that demonstrate the competencies. The questions on the test are aligned to the content described in the test competencies and skills within the test blueprint. On each test, you will find several different types of questions. Multiple choice questions have 4 possible answer choices and may include a passage or a graphic. Tests may also include assignments that require a written response. These are called performance assessment components. Tests for French, German, and Spanish require examinees to perform speaking tasks in the target language. The test information guide for your test, which is available on the FTCE/FELE program website, describes the types of questions that you will find on the test. It also contains the test blueprint, competencies and skills, sample questions, and other valuable resources. End of part 1. What's on the test?
Okay, so that was an example of one of the videos. That was part 1. So we've watched that together. So you know what's on the test, what to expect. I encourage you to watch videos 2 and 3 on your own time. You have that link now and you know where to find it. Okay, so going back to our study action plan, which is a carefully thought out plan which will enable you to cover the material you need to review before the test. Now, I'm not sure if you all are required to have the test, pass the test prior to graduation, or if there's a window after your graduation, whenever that deadline is, right? So you got to have that test by this date. You want to start studying for that. You want to start studying for the test about 2 weeks out from when you're going to take it, right? So you put your plan in place, you set out your times, you set out your dates. And if we look here, for example, let's just use the professional education exam because that's the exam that everyone's going to have for their certification. So they broke it down here, 6 sessions. 6 sessions from 5 to 8. Now, you may not have 3 hours. to study for each session. You may need to break it up some more, but this is an example of, how you can break up your study sessions. So if you're gonna do very concentrated, or you're gonna do longer study sessions, 3-4 hours, then you can have 6 sessions leading up to your actual test date. Or you can do smaller sessions, maybe you do an hour and a half each day. So these are some thoughts as to how to prepare. And I always recommend studying in pairs or groups of pairs. That really helps with this type of information. You can drill each other, the scenario questions. Okay, what would you do in this scenario? Talking it out helps you also retain the information. So see it, write it, do it. All right, so how do we map the test competencies and skills to courses taken? Go ahead and scan that QR code. That's going to take you there to the worksheet, the test competencies worksheet. Now, why is this important? Okay, this is just so that you can map your own mastery, right? So where am I with the mastery of each of these skills and competencies? And you can have your own progress monitor. This is very similar to like a data chart that, we have our students keep data chart chats in their student folder, monitoring your progress. Okay, I got this. I passed this skill on the first time I did the practice test. I feel pretty confident in that. I don't need to come back to it. And it actually gives you, like recommendations. So you're going to mark the boxes to indicate content covered by one or more courses. So maybe you double dosed in that. And you're going to leave the boxes blank that indicate that you have not yet covered that content. And again, that's just another tool for you for mapping purposes. Okay, tool 7, how to prepare for your teacher certification video. Oh, look, I got ahead of myself. I showed you this already. So this QR code is going to take you back to our video. So we've already watched part 1, so we know what's on our test. And your homework is to watch part 2 and part 3. Part 2 is what do I already know versus what I need to learn. And that's going to be an important step as you make your study plan. And then lastly, how can I do my best? So those are some tips for you as you go into it. And that's a great, you get a visual and audio piece of support there. Before the test. So what should we be doing before the test? You are going to register. You're going to register and attend the tutorial. So this is a virtual tutorial, right? You're taking the time, you're watching the video, you're going to go back, you're going to scan those QR codes, you're going to visit the website, you're going to prepare. You're going to determine the academic areas that you need to improve in a timely manner before the test. I always tell my teachers, start with the end in mind, okay? So your end goal is graduation, graduating, passing these tests, getting the certification, preferably before you go into the classroom. Once you know what you need to focus on, that's going to determine how you plan, okay? So what do I need to know? Now you know the areas that you are strong in, areas that you're having some growth there, where there's room for growth, and then and you'll focus based on that. Look over the resources, practice problems, previous practice tests to master those areas. Make sure to take notes or make flashcards and keep reviewing the information you are learning. I mean, you can even make like digital flashcards on your phone. you're sitting there, you have some downtime, you're waiting on an appointment, you're in the car. Make sure that you're just getting that information in front of you any way that you can. Do not forget to exercise or having a healthy body and mind. Now, listen, we say this all the time, but make sure you get rest before the test. Make sure you're resting as you're preparing for the test. Make sure you're eating right as you go into that test space. Again, especially if you know that you deal with any type of angst or anxiety leading up to big testing. Go to bed early the night before the test so you're well rested. Eat a healthy breakfast in the morning. Make sure that you include protein, fruits in your breakfast. Nice some oatmeal, bananas, granola bar. Wear comfortable clothing. And if I remember it correctly, those testing rooms are freezing. So make sure you're comfortable. Make sure you have a jacket or a sweater so that that doesn't become a distractor to you while you're taking the test. Try to arrive 15 to 20 minutes early to the testing site so you have enough time to check in, okay? You want to give yourself enough time to orient yourself with the building, find the parking, figure out how to get upstairs, get your locker, get your phone checked in so that you have a minute to hit boom, reset. You can decompress before you actually go into and sit down and begin your testing. But if you're running late and you're coming in, you're flying in before the doors close, that's already added to the anxiety of the day, okay? So please make sure you give yourself that grace time. Tool number 9, during the test. So what are some tips for during the test? Start the test with a positive attitude. You know, even if you've taken the test before, even if you missed it by 2 points, go in with the attitude that I am going to knock this thing out the park. I know this content, I know my competencies, I know the skills, I went over my scenarios, I've got mastery on this competency. Go on with that attitude. Start manifesting it, right? As you're studying, like, man, I'm about to knock this thing out of the park. I'm gonna get a 300 on this test. So you want to go in with that attitude because you're gonna feel it as you're in front of the computer. Read the questions very carefully and ask questions if you don't understand. Make sure, and that was one of our tips, right? So you're gonna read the question, read it again. Make sure that you're able to comprehend it and you know what the question is asking of you. So many times I've seen test takers, they're answering the question, but they're answering the question not based on the question that's asked, right? So maybe that's the right answer, but not for this particular question. Do not panic if you do not know the answer. Do the easier questions first, then the harder ones in order to boost your confidence. So one of the things that we looked at with the tutorial of the test, you'll notice you have a back button. So you can go back to questions. Don't get bogged down on those questions that have you stumped. If you're stumped, say, I got to come back to it. You want to get all of those points for the questions that you feel comfortable and confident with. Never rush to answer the question. Pause, think, and then respond to the question. Manage your time. Do not spend too much time on one question. And look for keywords such as discuss, compare, design, and so on in questions, because those are your keys. That lets you know what the test is inquiring about. Read all the answers carefully. And if you have no idea what the correct answer is, eliminate answers that you know are wrong. Okay, worst case scenario, guys, go back to your old strategies from the SAT and the ACT, all right? Elimination process. If you are dealing with the passage, look for the main idea. Look for the main idea. If you are dealing with a word problem, imagine yourself as the character in the problem and try to break it down, the problem, to several steps. This is usually in math. So this is a cool technique we teach the kids with word problems, just visualization, right? So I'm going to imagine myself as the man on the train and which way is the shortest way to my destination. And sometimes contextualizing it in that way, using that visualization strategy is really helpful. Do not leave any questions blank. If you got stumped on it and you go back to it and you're still stumped on it, you're going to eliminate and you're going to answer the question. Okay. If you feel overwhelmed or stressed out during the test, ask to be excused for a short break. I'm pretty sure that you can take breaks, bathroom breaks, because the phones, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know how much it's changed, are locked up in the locker, are locked up during the test taking time. Go out, take some deep breaths, get some fresh air on you, and keep positive thoughts. Keep reminding yourself, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, you know. And a quick aside about me, when I was taking my FELE, that's the Florida Educator Exam for Leadership, that test is a 4-part test. Well, it was back in the day. There was one section of that test, I just could not pass that part of the test. And I had to have a whole mindset shift, right? With how I was approaching the test. You know, I was going in answering it from IT's perspective. Remember, when you all are taking these tests, they don't want to know what you would do as a as an educator, and it's your classroom, your first grade kids, and no, based on the book, based on the competencies, based on the entire state of Florida, what is the right course of procedure for this, whether it's a scenario, what is the right answer for this? So I want to remind you all of that just based on my own personal experience, okay? So that's why it's so important to have mastery of those competencies and those skills. Tool number 2, after the test, as soon as you leave the testing site, analyze your performance. Be reflective. You know, one of the things I encourage my teachers to do is be reflective practitioners. How did this lesson go today? Did the kids get it? Do I need to reteach? Do I need to revisit this lesson tomorrow? I want you all to do the same. So be reflective test takers. Be reflective students. How do I feel about my time management? Could I have spent less time on this section? Do I feel good about competency 5? Did I answer enough questions? Okay, complete the research-based reflective test-taking strategies questionnaire that you receive from your FTCE instructor. You all should be able to request that from your instructors on campus. If you did poorly on the tests, learn from your mistakes and start writing down the areas that require improvement. Okay, so this is something that I had to do when I took the FELE, when I was transitioning into becoming an administrator. Why, Itita, are you having such difficulty with this portion of the test? How can you approach it in a different way to garner the success that you're looking for? And never give up and work harder. Dig deeper and determine how you can improve for future results. This is an example of what you are looking for. This is the reflective test taking strategy questionnaire. They sometimes they have them at the actual test center. So you can use this, and this anchors you in your reflectiveness. If you are not comfortable or used to that type of reflectiveness to your own performance, this helps you through the process, and you can request this. I like some of these questions. I spent more time on difficult questions, yes or no. I read the text question several times. Did you do that? And then, you want to kind of give it on the Likert scale there. So 1 is never, 2 is sometimes, 3 is often, and 5 is always. Tool 11, test taking strategies. Now, you all know this, but let's just call this let's call this a fun review. Okay, a fun review on some test taking strategies that should already be in your toolkit, and they just may need to be polished up a little. What are your concerns? Not sure what to expect, test anxiety, failure. So what are your concerns, right? The unknown is always scarier than the reality once some light is shed on it. Some may experience varying degrees of test anxiety. Test anxiety, if not managed, can impair one's ability to problem solve, answer more difficult questions, because it limits your brain's ability to recall learned information, right? So that's big, right? So anxiety is going to have an adverse impact on your ability to recall the information you study. So I'm going to suggest a few simple strategies for test anxiety to reduce the chances of drawing the blank. 1, breathe. If you begin to feel nervous, slowly take a few deep breaths and get back to work. You will automatically feel your body start to reset, fill your lungs up. You're going to go into a state of relaxing, right? Relax. The more relaxed you are, the less likely you're going to have memory loss during the test. Back to visualizing. Visualize. Think about a peaceful place. Even if you have to close your eyes for a minute and transport yourself mentally to some place that makes you feel comfortable, makes you feel relaxed, go there. Tell yourself that you came prepared for this test, or imagine getting a good grade. Be positive, okay? So give yourself words of encouragement like, Itita, you're well prepared for this test. You got this. You've been rocking those flashcards for the last 2 weeks, girl. Be positive, pep yourself up, encourage yourself, okay? And answer the questions that you know first. So don't forget your plan. Once you get in there, stick to your game plan. Provide, based on the format, that's going to allow you to backtrack the learning that you've done and execute your game plan. Don't get discouraged. So remember that you don't have to get every question right to do well on this test, right? Remember, we talk about where our competencies, where we have the most bang for our buck. The reality is that you've chosen to participate in this program because you have a goal to improve education. And you have the ability to achieve this level of excellence. And this is just one of the boxes that you need to check before you walk into that space of changing lives, right? Nursing tests are like any other type of test. Nursing test requires that you just recall knowledge, whereas what we're doing is critical thinking, right? So we're going to be critically thinking. We have scenarios, we have that essay, and you are well prepared for it, and you are going to walk into your test prepared. The cone of learning. So let's talk about retention rates. And some of this information is going to carry over into your classroom. I'm not sure if you all are already working as interventionists or substitutes, but want to know this, 5% lectures. Tell my teachers should not be the sage on the stage. We need to have student-centered classrooms, right? So students should be the one leading conversation, leading conversation, collaborating with peers, reading. Okay, so, and you're going to do these things. You're going to read over, you're going to comb through that website. You're going to print out everything that you need to print out. You're going to order your study book online, see where you can take it online, order you something from Amazon, audio visual, watching those videos, anything you can find on Khan Academy, anything you can find on YouTube, demonstrations. Okay, that's your real world. You want to see it, do it. Discussion groups, collaboration. That's why group collaboration is very important. A lot of times we learn from our peers, right? So the ability to build on our own knowledge based on what our peers know. Practice by doing. So hands-on. You actually do it, you're good. Take those practice tests, exhaust them. Take as many different ones as you can so that you see different content. And then by teaching others. So when you have an opportunity, if you all are studying in small groups, and this week you're the lead, you're in charge of competency 2. If you're responsible for teaching that competency and those skills, you're definitely going to most likely have mastery in that particular competency, because now you've read over it, you studied it, you've had to articulate and present it to others. So this gives you an idea of the cone of learning. You want to remember this for yourself as you prepare for the test, but you also want to remember this for your students as you go into the classroom. Next steps in improving study skills. Analyzing your overall strengths and weaknesses as they relate to studying, taking notes, reread your notes fully within 24 hours of class, okay? So when you all in class, you got, let's say your classes are on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you wanna review those Tuesday notes by Wednesday, maybe Thursday before you go to class, and the same deal with Thursday. You wanna put your eyes on them again Friday. Get it into your long-term memory by writing a summary of each section in your own words. Once you're able to articulate it, write about it in your own words, summarize it. These are all retention skills. So these are all retention skills that we encourage. Study actively with a partner or group. Take turns asking questions that focus on application. Nothing like collaboration, okay? Nothing like collaboration. Don't do this on the island if you don't have to. Get you some study buddies, get you a couple of folks that, you all can do some late nights with, divvy up the roles and responsibilities, assign different competencies, have different mini teacher sessions led by different group members. Make the most of your study and your study plan. Cardinal rules for test taking. Read all instructions carefully. Read all test questions carefully. Pace yourself, okay? And don't leave blanks. Answer only what's being asked of you, guys. Do not read into a question beyond what is there. That was my Achilles heel, right? Reading into a question beyond what was there and coming up with the wrong answer. This is a common mistake, especially for experienced educators. Remember, just answer the question with the information that you are given. Pace yourself, don't rush, but do keep abreast of the time that's allotted to you so that you can stay on track. And I believe that you will have a clock at the bottom of your test telling you how much time you have taken and how much time you have left. Reading the question, paraphrase the question. Ask yourself, what is this question asking? Rephrase it in your own words and identify keywords that'll help you find the answer. And we talked about those keywords: discuss, compare, describe. Absolutes. Always, all, never, only, ever, forever. You're not going to see absolutes on the test. Usually, frequently, often, seldom, okay? Absolutes place limits on the statement that generally is considered to be correct, but statements that use all-inclusive terms frequently represent broad generalizations that usually are false. Frequently, these options are incorrect and can be easily eliminated. However, some absolutes, such as all students should be treated with respect, are indeed correct, okay? Because there are a few absolutes in the world. But be discriminating when you are eliminating those possibilities. Answering options. Try to answer the question before looking at the answers. Then come up with the answers in your head before looking at possible answers. Read all the choices. If all else fails, take an educated guess. So you may say, well, I don't really know how to eliminate. Well, here are a few tips to help you with the elimination process. Educated guess strategies, okay? Always use the process of elimination as a first step. Beware of negative terms such as none, not, and never. When you are undecided between two answers, try to express each in your own words, then analyze the difference between the two. So which one makes the most sense when you do it that way? Use logic and common sense to reason out the correct answer. Think like the teacher. Tool 16, think like a teacher. As a teacher, you need to be able to apply pedagogy to better understand information when making classroom decisions and impacting student achievement. You need to be able to analyze information. You also need to evaluate information, okay? So what's the difference between analyzing something and evaluating it? While you're analyzing it, you may be disaggregating data. You may be looking at comparable data points. You may be looking at trends in data information. But when you're evaluating it, you're determining the value of that information that's coming in. And then think about a student's well-being. Tool number 16, look for similar options. If a test item contains two or more options that are feasibly correct or similar in meaning, then look for an umbrella term or phrase that encompasses the other correct option. Sometimes items contain two or more options that's similar, and it may be difficult to choose between the two, but look for a global option that's more comprehensive and general than the other options. How to overcome test anxiety. So really quickly, let's just talk about test anxiety before we get out of here. A little anxiety can jumpstart your studying and keep you motivated. Too much anxiety can interfere with your studying. You may have difficulty learning and remembering what you need to know for the test. Remember, we talked about how anxiety can block your ability to recall information. Too much anxiety may block your performance during the test, okay? You may have some difficulties demonstrating what you actually know. Tip 17, tips for reducing test anxiety. Being well prepared for the test is the best way to reduce test anxiety. So when you go in feeling confident that you know the information, that's going to naturally mitigate some of the anxiety that you may have. Space out studying over days or weeks and continually review class and material. So don't just wait until the test is coming up to start studying those 2 weeks out. Remember, you should be reviewing your notes after between 24 and 48 hours of actually writing them down. No last minute cramming, okay? So don't try to learn everything the night before. If you're progress monitoring yourself, reviewing the information as you receive it, then there shouldn't be a need for cramming, right? Because you've already begun to retain that information. And then make sure you get adequate sleep the night before the test. A growth mindset positively impacts your performance. Maintaining a positive attitude as you study. Think of doing well and succeeding, okay? So we were talking about earlier, manifesting this success. Like, I passed this test. I have knocked this thing out the park. I am good to go. The neuroscience of learning. Let's watch this video as our closer.
So welcome. I'm so excited that you're here to learn about the neuroscience of learning. I'm Dr. Britt Andriata. I'm the Director of Learning and Development here at lynda.com. And I'm going to be sharing with you some of the latest research that is coming out of neuroscience at places like Harvard, Stanford, University of Wisconsin, and New York University. I'm also going to be sharing with you some of the new advances that people are seeing. We now have medical technology that allows them to see inside the brain in ways we've never been able to do before. So we're really on this frontier, this new place of a renaissance occurring where new things are coming out about how we're wired, how we learn, and how we turn that learning into behavior change. So this is intended for anyone who's learning something. So if you yourself are learning, you'll get some tips and strategies. Also, if you help others learn. So if you teach any level from preschool all the way through graduate school, if you do training or learning and development in any setting, corporate, government, education, nonprofit, doesn't matter. If you help people learn or you learn yourself, you're going to get some really interesting information. So what we're talking about is potential. Really, when we want people to learn, we're trying to tap into some potential. And potential is defined as the capacity to become or develop into something in the future. Become better than you are now. Do something new that you can't do now. It's unrealized ability. And what's exciting about potential is that's how we get there, is learning. We take someone, they learn something new, and they can change. They can become better. A key set of this is our mindset. And this is based on the work by Dr. Carol Dweck. And people tend to have one of two mindsets. And there's one that's really helpful for learning and one that's not so helpful for learning. So the first type of mindset is a fixed mindset. It's this belief that you're innately set how you are. Your intelligence is a certain level. You're good at math or you're not. You've got great people skills or you don't. So it's kind of like you got what you got and you can make the most of what you got, but you can't change what you got. So that's a fixed mindset. A growth mindset is the idea that I can get better, I can learn, I can change, I can improve. And in fact, research on the brain has shown that we can. The brain is incredibly elastic. So even if you've been bad at math your entire life, if you put enough energy into it and you get the right kind of instruction, you can become great at math. You can become great at science. So some of those things you learned about yourself in school are not true. You actually can change. And we've seen the brain be able to change and shift all the way up until death. So we don't even time out on our ability to do that. So you can learn and grow. And what's great is it's this idea of a fixed mindset would say, I got what I got, I just have to be good. And the growth mindset is, I can get better. I can get better. So organizations that are embracing a growth mindset are creating a culture of continuous improvement. Wherever you are now, we can do something to get you better. And here's some research on this. So this one's from an academic setting, and they took students in a school setting, and the teacher broke the students into two groups. And one group was told you're going to be compared to others. How you do on the exam, your answers will be compared to the other students. And you'll be compared on questions 1 through 5, the same as questions 6 through 10. The other group was told you're going to be compared to your improvement. So how you did on questions 1 through 5 will be compared to how you do on questions 6 through 10. And I'm looking for improvement. So how both groups did on the first set of questions is pretty similar. They performed about the same. Well, the fixed mindset, which is I can't really change my score, I got what I got, they got just a smidge better on questions 6 through 10. But the group that was told improvement matters, improved by a lot, not a little bit. So this zone right here, this difference, is what we're talking about with the growth mindset. And we know that when people are told change matters, growth matters, they step up, they improve. So to me, that orange box is potential. Those students were this smart, but they had the opportunity to really improve their abilities by just knowing that they had the chance to. So that's an academic study, but we know it's true in performance evaluations too. Companies that embrace, we score you, you're average or you're better than average, and you're just compared to your peers, that's a fixed mindset. There's other companies doing performance evaluations saying, if you move the needle, if you improve, that's what we value. That's what we're going to evaluate you on. And then Sal Khan, who created the Khan Academy, he does all kinds of amazing online learning in math and sciences and other academic topics. He has all kinds of data that they can see on the backside. And they can see a student struggling and how many times they go back and do those problems. And then they can see when the improvement happens, when the moment happens, and the kid just skyrockets. Their scores just go through the roof. So his whole service is based on this idea that you can get better. So the aha matters, absolutely. And there's going to be a lot more data that's going to support that. So the mantra of the growth mindset is the word yet. I don't know how to do it yet. I'm not good at it yet, but I can be. So let's embrace the yet and figure out where it is that you want to go. So for this presentation to be really valuable to you, I want you to have something that you're noodling on that's really meaningful to you. So I want you to pick something that you'd like to learn. Either you're currently learning or you'd really love to learn it and you just haven't gotten around to it yet. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes in pairs. You can pick something professional like leadership or money management. You could pick something personal like bake bread or learn how to surf. I don't care what it is. Just make it real for you. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes on the clock. So you're going to share this 2 minutes. You each get a minute to tell the other person what it is that you'd like to learn. And then you're going to actually use that thing through the rest of the presentation to fiddle with some of the concepts. Okay? 2 minutes.
Okay. So that was a short clip on growth mindset and the importance of it. Tip 20, focus, and we are almost out of time, but I'm doing good. Focus on positive self-statements such as, I can do this. Don't worry about the other students finishing the test before you do. Concentrate on your own test. Stay focused on the questions. Take the time that you need to do your best and think of the test as an opportunity to show how much you've learned. This is another video on growth mindset. I'm going to skip it for the purpose of time, but I will share it with your advisors on the back end. So with those tips, if you take those tips as a combination, you are going to master your test anxiety. Remember, you're going to focus on your success and the studying and the learning that you've done and have confidence as you go into the test. Those are references for today. And we made it through all of our tips. All of our toolbox tips, all 21 tips for success. I hope you had an opportunity to scan some of those QR codes. It's going to take you to the resources that are available to you, as well as the website, but you should be able to find the website with the easy Google search. Make sure you familiarize yourself with that website and you take advantage of all of the resources that are available to you.